The following program is a Town of Colony television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Welcome to Story by Story, celebrating the human spirit. I'm Kate Dudding, and I'm one of your hosts. Our other host today is Marnie Gillard, who is sitting in for Joe Doolittle. Every month, Joe asks me, tell us about one thing in storytelling that happened in the last month. And if you'd like me to go first, well, because I didn't give Marnie the heads up about this.
Sure, go for it.
I would have to say I am thankful for Facebook, because it has figured out that I really like the stories that end CBS News every night. And apparently enough of my friends had been posting that, and I had been liking them, that they are now being sent to me by Facebook.
Lovely.
And they usually greatly touch my heart. And one that did was about a high school football team. They had an autistic fellow who was the manager, who wasn't a player, but he was a very dedicated support worker. And there was one game where in the last few minutes, it didn't make any difference what happened. The outcome had been established. One team was way ahead of the other. So what the coach did was he put the autistic boy in. And he got the pass from the handoff from the quarterback, and then all of his team and all of the opposing team ran with him to the goal line.
What a story.
Yes, and grace, fellowship, was just the right thing to do.
Yeah, supporting each other. That's what stories is about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, I have a fun little experience that I had. I volunteer to cover a half an hour of a secretary at a preschool because she hadn't been having any time to have lunch. And they put it out, is there a volunteer? And I live very close to the school, so I came over, and I've been having a blast having a half an hour and push the button to let people in and say good morning. But the other big fun part is all the preschool teachers, and there are 6 different teachers in the building, have said, when are you coming to tell us stories? And so as soon as I'm done with lunch, usually that time that I'm covering the lunch, then I pop in if it isn't nap time or whatever. And now I'll see the kids and they'll say, oh, there's the big bad wolf lady. Or drip trap, are you coming back? And it's so fun that they hold on to these little pieces of story and then they put them with me, associate them with me. So that's been such fun, so much fun.
I have this vision of you changing costumes in their mind, you know.
Well, it's the thing that makes me so happy is that storytelling is about developing your mind. Yes, your imagination. And I don't think it's costumes so much as, characters.
Right.
It's like
right.
Those characters, that troll, who's that crossing my bridge? They got him and they got that big bad wolf. Yeah.
Yes, stories are wonderful. And it reminds me of something that Becky Holder told me once. She was a kindergarten teacher for many years,
yes.
and a fabulous storyteller who's just recently moved back to this area. We'll have to have her on the show.
We should have her, absolutely.
Yes, because I think she left before we started this. Becky Holder. Okay. And she said, I always, when I cast the little plays we do in kindergarten, I always do it out of character. Like the giant is the smallest one, because the smallest one lives in a land of giants. I don't know if you've ever sat on the floor and seen a preschool teacher looming down on you. It's quite a thing. And she said, and they play the best giants, the littlest ones.
Yes.
So yeah, it's fun working with the little ones.
Oh, it is.
And that, I think, brings us to our guest.
Oh, good.
Because we are very pleased to have with us Eliud Nieves, all the way from Ithaca, New York. And he's here to talk about a new YouTube channel aimed at children. Welcome, Eliud.
I'm glad to be here.
What caused you to want to start such a channel?
Well, I started telling stories to children. That was my first love, and I love telling to children. And I don't get many opportunities. I see I'm not a good self-promoter, so I'm not out there trying to get, so I was lamenting to someone in the past. I says, I don't tell too many stories, especially to children. And so I was thinking recently, I said, well, a lot of children that I know, they go to YouTube. They're watching all these little things. They like the reveals on YouTube, and they watch the little fractured fairy tales. And I said, well, maybe I can start a YouTube channel geared for children, and then I can tell to a lot of children that way. So that's what I did. I started a YouTube channel, and I'm not very computer savvy, so I had a little trouble, and I wrote down where stories live as the way to find it. But the way it turned out, you have to put it all together to find me on YouTube. So where stories live.
Where stories live. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you can see it on the slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly what you have to type in. And a little promotion idea, because I am a promoter of storytelling, is you might let your area children's librarians know about this, because that could be a resource they might want to use, and it would also introduce you to them. And
Good idea.
that's one of the reasons Joe and I started this TV show, was to give exposure to all the storytellers in the area, and to storytelling as a whole.
Good idea.
Okay, so do you have? What are your plans into the next few months? What do you plan to do with the channel?
Well, I just plan to tell all kinds of stories for children that children and families can enjoy together. So I plan folk tales and fairy tales, original stories that I've written. It's a whole.
A whole mixed bag.
A mixed bag.
Yes, because he could be. I was talking to our audience. Eliud could be concentrating on folktales from around the world, or modern folktales, or your original ones. Eliud writes many original stories for adults as well as for children, and they are really remarkable.
I'll say one thing, that when I was very little, I got inducted into story through a local television show, which is very much what YouTube is sort of like now, where you can make your own little show.
That's right.
And I can still hear in my mind, there was a way the woman started the show. We didn't see her yet. We were just hearing it, and there was a spiral going. And it said, put on a smile, because a smile is the magic key to the magic door of the wonderful magic toy shop. And that's what the show was called, The Wonderful Magic Toy Shop. And it had a piano player and a man who drew stories as he spoke. There were a lot of things, but that some little something that sort of was a ritual pulled me in every day that we turned it on.
Right, absolutely, yeah. I remember seeing two storytellers on television a long, long time ago, and I loved their stories so much I still tell those stories.
Yes, lovely.
So do you plan to publish, that isn't quite the right YouTube word, but frequently, or?
I'm starting to upload a story per week, once a week, and we'll see how it goes. But I think that's a good pace for now.
Right, and so do you have a particular day, or people just subscribe to a YouTube channel
Well,
and
yeah.
then that it shows up that there's a new thing?
I'm starting to spread the word through Facebook and friends, and I already have 21 subscribers on my channel. So
Oh, that's great. That's no small thing.
I think it was just maybe less than a week ago that you even talked about. You mentioned it on Facebook.
Just maybe this month, past Monday, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
Oh, well, I got to go find you on Facebook and subscribe. For sure.
that's good.
Yes, that's wonderful. And just a little bit of your background. That your day job for many years was as an art teacher in Florida?
I was an art teacher, but I also did drama with children. So we had a lot of fun. I also incorporated storytelling. And Marnie mentioned about the artist who would draw while telling a story. I did something similar where I would have the children write a letter of the alphabet on the board. And then I would say, well, tell me something that begins with that letter. And then I would turn the letter into whatever so that was,
I'm thinking avocado, but they probably didn't say avocado.
No,
Apple.
Airplane, but alligator.
It reminds me that a friend of mine started storytelling to his brothers and sisters, and he would look at the cracks in their hands and say, and then down this road, this happened, and then up over this big mountain. And he was just using the elements of a hand.
Yes.
So many ways to pull children in.
Yes.
Thrilling. Good.
So, would you share your first story that's on your YouTube channel, Where Stories Live?
Where Stories Live. Yes, okay. The first story that I uploaded, I honestly don't remember where I got it. It was in a book somewhere, and it's called The King of the Jungle. And when I read it, maybe the name was a little different. I don't know, but that's what I call it. So here's The King of the Jungle. Now, some of you have an idea who the King of the Jungle might be. You might say, oh, maybe it's a lion or a tiger. Well, I heard a different story. You see, once there was a tiny little frog sitting on a lily pad in a pond in the middle of the jungle. He was eating flies. They were delicious. He loved flies. Oh, he felt like he was a king eating those flies. They were delicious. Now, little did he know that there was a hungry tiger lurking around. He had been looking for something to eat all morning and he hadn't found anything. I'm so hungry, said the tiger. There's a pond. I'll go drink some water. That'll be good. Good water. Then he saw the little frog. You're gonna be my lunch. The little frog panicked. Me? You can't eat me. Why can't I eat you? Said the tiger. He had to think quickly. You can't eat me because I'm the king of the jungle. Said the tiger. You a puny little frog, the king of the jungle. Don't make me laugh. But I am the king of the jungle and I can prove it. Let's have a contest, okay? If I win, then I'm the king of the jungle, okay? Yeah? What kind of contest you want to have? Can we have a jumping contest? Oh yeah, I'm a good jumper and I'm gonna go first. I'll show you how it's done, son. The tiger got ready to jump. But little did he know that the little frog hopped right behind him and held on to his tail. Not only that, while he was there, he took a little piece of tiger fur. He didn't even feel it, and he stuck it in his cheek. Now, the tiger took a mighty leap. See, that's how it's done. But since the little frog was right on his tail, he just hopped over his head. Ha! I win! I'm the king of the jungle! Wait a minute! Let's do over! Come on! No, I win! No, come on, let's have another contest. Okay, we can have another contest, and that'll prove that I'm the king of the jungle, said the frog. Let's have a spitting contest. Spitting? That's disgusting, said the tiger. My mommy told me never to spit in public. Well, then I win. Okay, we'll have a spitting contest just this once, okay? And I go first. Well, the tiger had a dry mouth. He hadn't eaten anything. He tried, but it didn't go very far. Patooey! Not very far. Now, it was the frog's turn. And his mouth was full of saliva from eating all of those flies. Plus, remember, he had the piece of tiger fur in his cheek. So he was ready to spit. Patooey! Out flew the tiger fur. And the tiger said, "Hey, what's that?" "Oh, that's just a little piece from a tiger I ate this morning for breakfast." "Hey, you eat tigers?" "Yes, I told you. I'm the king of the jungle. I mean, you eat tigers." "Yes, and you know what? It's almost time for lunch. I'm getting hungry." That tiger said, "Oh yeah, well I'll see ya." And he ran so fast, he disappeared in an instant. And they never saw the tiger back in the jungle again. The little frog, he hopped back to his pond, went to the lily pad and continued eating flies. And he was the king of the jungle.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Oh.
I had no idea why the tiger fur was important. That was one smart little frog.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't know where you got it, but it's been in your repertoire for a long
That's
time.
one story. That's some stories kind of speak to you. That stay with me.
I love that story because the little guy wins out. And all my life, I felt like the littlest Billy Goat Gruff. I was little and there were big brothers and lots of grown-ups. And I'm pretty short still, so I like little guy winning.
Tiny little guy wins.
Only in stature, Marnie. Only in stature are you short.
Yeah.
In spirit, you are very large and hard.
Thank you, Kate.
Yes. So what else? Well, let's see. The character voices and facial enhancements were very tiger-like and little frog-like.
Okay.
It was fun to watch, and I imagine. Does that come easily to you? The voices and the facial.
They do. It's like a natural thing. I kind of,
Did you hear a lot of storytelling growing up?
Well, I heard stories from my mother. This is one of my. That's where I first learned stories. My mother, when I was just a toddler, she used to tell me stories. She used to put me to bed by telling me stories. So. And when she couldn't find one in the book, she would just make one up. So.
And did she use voices?
Yeah, she used.
Because I think children do love that. Yeah. I think they really love that, and faces. And you do seem to come by it so naturally. It just kind of comes right out of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I know. I love it. I love when people, inhabit a character, no matter what kind of character it is. Yeah.
For me, it's more of a challenge, and I remember Robin Beatty in one workshop said, "Get the body, get the stance." Of course, you're sitting down, but think of the body, get into the body, and then the voice will flow from it. And
I think that's very true. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of times.
And then before you went, especially going back and forth between the characters, that was also a hard thing for me to learn, was get in the body, the voice, okay? Get in the other body, and the voice, and then leave the voice behind when it's the narrator, because that's the final touch, that you've got those. You don't have the narrator going, and then they went.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard if you have more than one character, more than two characters.
Yes.
It gets a little complicated.
Then it gets a little complicated. Yes, Eliud made it look easy, but that's because he's a professional, and you don't like the ballerinas. They look like they float, but their feet are bleeding.
I'm a professional, but try this at home.
You can try this at home. That's good.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
Do you think you will do on the YouTube channel, because of course it's different from having a live audience, have ways the children could join in, or will there be some stories maybe that have that part where, like I was mentioning the Billy Goes Gruff, they get to go trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, tap. Is there a way to invite them in, do you think, through that medium?
I am not sure. I would have to explore that, because that would be wonderful if I could have participation. But I also thought maybe I could have children upload a video of a story, of them telling a story. That might be another.
That's fun, and add it to your channel.
Right,
Here's
exactly.
one of my listeners.
Right, one of my listeners.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
We can't participate.
Well, I can also invite guest storytellers to my channel.
That
So
would
why?
be fun.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the video. We could do a voice. We could do but we couldn't pretend to be 12 or 10 or.
We could be frogs.
We could be little frogs.
And tigers, perhaps.
Okay.
So there's a whole new world. That's very exciting. And you might look to see what other storytellers have done. I'm trying to think of. Well, you can Google and find out, but somebody who's had a YouTube channel,
Right. Yes.
aimed at children and what they do. A live recording, that's the live children are doing it, but yeah. But on TV they go, you can do this too. Oh, you're doing a good job.
Can pretend.
But I don't know whether that would fit with your desires or would.
There's probably lots of different kinds of things to sample. I bet you've done some sampling already, really. Yeah. I see teachers on, sometimes they're reading stories, and sometimes people have done animated things. But I have to say, I love when I'm looking right in the face of a live storyteller when I'm looking at a YouTube. I do, yes.
Yeah, sometimes I see storytellers that use props, and those are good, but sometimes I think they can become a distraction. Sometimes to me, sometimes it's better if the storyteller is the main focus for the audience.
Yeah, that I remember. I took a number of workshops with Janine Laverty. And she was sort of on the anti-prop end of the spectrum. And she said, if you have to use a prop, when you're done, in between, like if you have a little drum, I think I had one story that had a drum, and I really had to use the drum. Or then I found out I could just use my body. But do not fuss with it. If you're done with it, just ignore it. Right. Don't twiddle with it, because that's very distracting to your listeners. So yes, props are.
Yeah.
They can be helpful, and there are some pitfalls.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess we could go into the coming attractions. We'll be back for Eliud's second story.
Oh, good.
And there's two things that Marnie has to share with us about the coming attraction, so I wanted to leave time for that. So I'll go through the coming attractions. storytelling events that you can go to in the Capital District in the month of March, starting with what is now known as the first Monday Tales and Stuff, since Arthur's Market in the Stockade is getting renovated. Joe Diddle has moved his first Tuesday Tales and Stuff to the Moon and River Cafe on South Ferry Street, and the first Mondays were available there. And so he's going to debut the first Monday Tales and Stuff as the feature teller himself, If the Walls Could Talk, Stories of Schenectady.
And that will start in March?
In March 4th, from 7 to 9.
I love to go to that particular swap where there's a featured teller, or sometimes two, and then people just jump in with stories. I've enjoyed that. I live in Schenectady, so it's really fun and not too far from my house.
And it's for storytelling. That's the tales part. And the stuff part is spoken word and music.
That's right.
So it's sometimes it's just storytelling, and then other times this is a more open mic.
Yes, people have actually read things.
Yeah.
And it's been delightful, as long as
Right.
they're careful about the timing.
Right.
There's something about the timing, you don't want to hear a 10-page story.
Right. I remember I was a featured teller once, and somebody was reading a couple of poems, and we asked her, could you read each one twice? Because, the first time you hear a poem, you catch on to some things, but then the second time you catch on to even more. And
Nice.
that's what Elizabeth Ellis does.
Oh, that was lovely.
She always reads a poem twice. And then at the Irish American Heritage Museum, it has a new date and time. It's the second Sunday of the month, 3 to 5. And the Irish American Heritage Museum is on Broadway in Albany. On Sunday, March 10th at 3 p.m., Tales of the Irish Spirit with the new Tell Trio, which are 3 of the 4 stories high.
Oh, okay.
Jane Ainsley, Mary Murphy, and Barbara Palumbo. Carol Conley, who was the 4th story in 4 Stories High, has moved to North Carolina several years ago.
And we miss her.
Yes.
We do.
That I still see her on Facebook. She showed a picture of daffodils recently. So I'll have to practice the Tell Trio, saying that at any kind
It's a tongue
It's
twister,
a
the Tell Trio.
Right.
But I like it.
Yes, I think it's a good new name. And also on that same day, Nancy Payne and I will be telling stories celebrating International Women's Day
How lovely.
at the Women's Club of Albany. And our stories will cover women from around the world, from this country, Russia, Japan, Ireland, and Kenya.
Wow.
At least. And perhaps a few others. So, come to mind. No, that's 2 to 3:30, also in Albany. And this is a fundraiser for their general fund. And they raise money to help women in various different ways in Albany.
How lovely.
And it's sort of a clubhouse. It's also so it's a community as well as a fundraising event group. Then, right here at Colony Town Library on Tuesday, March 19th, from 6 to 8, will be our monthly meeting of the Story Circle of the Capital District, where people can tell works in progress. And here, tell is the really important part, that if you absolutely must, you could glance at an outline, but we're about telling stories, not reading them, and so we would like you to do that. But listeners are very welcome.
And as someone who remembers the very first time she attended, and people said, just go see it in your mind and tell us. Just tell us what happened in the story. And it was a poem, and I said, oh, the poet would turn over in his grave. And they said, he'd probably love listening to you tell it as a story. It's a story, right? I was like, yeah, it's a story, and I did it. With no notes. And a lot of butterflies, but it launched me.
Now, I remember my first time. It was probably 4 months after my best friend had been killed in an automobile accident. And I had created, I had spoken at her memorial service. And there were a lot of things pushing me towards storytelling. But I wondered if people would be interested in this story, because it meant so much to me. Now this was no training, okay? English class, Marnie used to be an English teacher. That was long in the distant past. And things like beginning, middle, end, conflict, and resolution were not on the top of my mind. Okay, it was a good memorial speech, but a story, not so much. But Tom Weekly was there, and a woman also from Vermont, and I can't remember.
Ruth?
Ruth, exactly. Ruth very kindly said to me afterwards, it was wonderful. And once you change it into a story, it'll be really great. But she said it so kindly, and that's what drives the feedback. If you want feedback, you can get it. If you don't, you don't have to. And if you just want people to say nice things, which we call appreciations. I knew accolades weren't quite the right word. Appreciations, that's what you can get. But I said, you're right. Beginning, middle, end, conflict, resolution. And now that's the way it is. But that story has changed because it's been over 20 years. I digress. Anyways, please come if you're a budding storyteller, if you'd like to listen. You're welcome. Now, Marnie, you are doing something on March 21st at the Irish American Heritage Museum from 7 to 9. Tell us about that.
Well, 10 years ago, I took on a big story, a life story, and I was able to do it at our dinners that we used to have at the Glenn Sanders in 3 parts. And then it turned out Joe Doolittle knew somebody who was writing music about this character. And we eventually did a 2-hour show with the music and stories woven back and forth. It's the story of Grace O'Malley of Granuaile, the Irish pirate queen who lived 1530 to 1603, almost exactly the same years as Elizabeth I, her nemesis, wanting to take over all of Ireland as Queen of England. And Grace learned to be a sailor first and a good tradeswoman, as learned from her father, but she went on to be somebody who stood up for her country and taught her other fellow chieftains, we got to stick together against that she-king on the other side of the pond. We got to keep our country. And it was a big journey in that 16th century. But the 2 women got to meet. And that's the closing of the story of what they said to each other. And it was a pirate queen in a rough outfit, although I think she bore her best, versus the Queen of England with her white mask and her red hair and
jewels and
jewels. But she was quite astounded by this other woman, and the 2 women saw themselves as leaders and ended peacefully. It's a wonderful story.
And I saw you tell it at the Glenn Sanders Mansion. I saw the extravaganza with the music, and that was absolutely fabulous, because the music would come in, and Marnie told it in chapters, and so you would go, okay, she was a little girl, and the music helped you mull it over and absorb it.
Yeah.
And then there Marnie was ready with the next chapter. It was
Right.
it was sort of like binge watching.
That's
that
right,
it-
a life story in one evening. But we'll have an intermission at one. It'll probably be kind of like two major halves.
Right.
But there'll be chapters. Those chapters are there. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that's highly recommended.
It's an exciting thing to climb into a life story. It's big.
Oh.
That thing about the narrator and all those characters.
Yeah.
But we have fun. That's the
Yes.
whole idea, is to have fun.
So yes, warming that back up or bringing it back to life is quite well. It's not as hard as the initial creation. So you get to play with this
I'm
for a while.
working and
Granuel.
playing both.
Yes.
Granuel.
Okay, and then something else Marnie will like to talk to us about is the Interfaith Story Circle. Their monthly meeting in March is their annual youth circle, or almost annual youth circle, featuring new tellers at Children at the Well, Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding. That will be on Tuesday, March 26th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Trinity Presbyterian Church on Swaggertown Road in Scotia. So you're once again, you have been a coach and haven't been a coach, but this year, once again, you're a coach for Children at the Well.
Yes, I'm loving it. We just started 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we'll be working our way up till the end of March, and we'll have that circle, and we'll also have a potluck for parents, so the kids get a chance to perform. And there are 10 kids. We're Muslims and Jewish and Christian and various other kinds of forms of thinking about the great mystery. And we bring our cultures and our faith understandings together and show that it's possible in the world to cross over and admire the way each other does through story. Through story. It's a way that we don't have to say, well, I believe this or I believe that, but we tell stories, and we find that generosity of spirit is something that crosses all borders. Kindness, opening your heart, just getting to know each other. It's been a great joy. And each child picked a story, and then we helped them work to develop it, doing as Eliud was doing with characters and narrators and details, so we can see it in our imaginations. Yes. Children at the Well.
Yes. Yeah, that has been a project for over 10 years. This is the 11th class.
Yes, it is.
And in fact, some of the earliest students have now graduated from college.
One's gone on to law school recently.
Yes,
Or-
and another one is working for Microsoft and has a co-author of a technical book, and his
Younger brother.
Yes, is.
He's not currently in our new group,
Right.
because these are sort of 12 and 13-year-olds, and Atharv is, yes,
Yes,
is a senior or a junior, I think. in high
and
school.
he is told with Story Circle at Word Place, which
And recently at
we don't
the
happen to have one in March.
Dance
We have,
Flurry, he was
Yes.
one of our performers.
right. Yes, so they're a family rich in storytellers. And since Children at the Well has been going on for so long, a book has been created on how to do it. And that was recently published.
Our Stories Connect is the title.
And it's
Yes.
available through Amazon.com. So if you know anyone who works with children, you might want to get them a copy because
There's lots of articles in it,
Yes.
as well as how-to, just perspectives from different storytellers, how to do appreciations well for a brand new storyteller that
Yes.
will encourage them to see, oh, really? That was good? You thought that was good? Yeah. I think there's even more good stuff inside like that. Keep letting it out. Yeah.
Yes. And Interfaith Story Circle was started over 25 years ago by our friend Gert Johnson, who believed that the more people of faith heard each other's stories, the more that they would find in common.
Yes. Well said.
And that's true. That's so true. Once you hear somebody else's story, you can't hate them anymore as the other. that my family never, had anything to do with, we're Irish Catholic. We're not, whatever, you hear, that happened to our family too.
Yeah.
Oh, right, and I was going over a story that I'm going to tell, and I went, and when they went through a naturalization ceremony, just like my grandfather did, and I don't know when my grandfather did, but he came over from Scotland when he was 2. And I thought, gee, that would be nice to slip in just to show that it's not just this Muslim family
Sure.
going through naturalization, but sort of a quarter of me.
Our friend Anne-Marie McLaughlin has a wonderful naturalizing story that she tells coming from Ireland, growing up in Ireland.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard that.
Oh, it's funny. We'll have to get her on.
Oh yeah, that'll be. I think we have once, and she's more comfortable just telling in informal settings.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, we still have 18 minutes, so we have plenty of time. But just to finish the coming attractions and get back to Eliud. Ending the events in March is the storytelling open mic at Cafe Lena, the 4th Tuesday of every month now. The featured teller will be our missing Joe Doolittle.
Oh, I was going to say, yes. I'm in April.
You're out. Okay. Okay. Think about the blurb you might want to.
Okay.
Because
be
I
happy.
make the posters for that.
Lovely.
Yeah, because probably the blurb that is on our website needs updating.
Sure.
I'm sure, I know mine does. So that's March 26th, 7 to 9 p.m. If you want to sign up, the doors open at 6:30. Sign up to tell at the Storytelling Open Mic. Again, this is a telling, and I don't think Janine would even like you to have an outline. Maybe you could write it down on your hand. But Mary Murphy has a story that if you do that, it could, if you sweat, that is not fail-proof.
It's a lot about just trusting yourself and
Yes.
trusting the story and trusting the audience will be welcoming you, and they are a wonderful audience.
Yes, and I found that as I get older, occasionally I forget a word, and if I kind of, it's obvious, the audience will help me go, mist. I went, yes, the cloud of mist. Sorry. Okay, and just to remind you, we are at Proctor's in our 12th season there. We just have one more event there this season, the 18-19 season, April 7th, Shenanigans. And then we have over 200 stories on demand. So if you can't find anything on the tube, come over to YouTube, and there we'll be waiting for you. Okay. So, Eliud, we didn't forget about you. But Marnie had a lot to share, and I was pleased to have her share it. So you have another, anything else you've thought of in the interim that you want to share about your YouTube channel or your background, or just jump into the next story?
Well, I think I'll jump into my next story, which is the one I'm going to upload for this coming weekend. You might be familiar with it. It's a folktale from Kenya. It's called The Tale of the Lenani Beast. No, not familiar with it. Okay, so this story, while it's could be for children, it also might have some lessons for adults as well. So here's a folktale from Kenya, The Tale of the Lenani Beast. Once, a young man fell madly in love with a beautiful girl. And every day he would go to her house and beg her to marry him. Now, she wouldn't say yes, and she wouldn't say no. She would say something like, a nice drink of coconut water would be nice. Some fresh coconut water, I would love that. And the young man would jump up. You want coconut water? I'll get you coconut water. He would run to the coconut grove, climb a tree, slice off a coconut, run to her, slice off the top of the coconut, and give it to her. Here, coconut water. The next day he would come back and he would say, "Would you marry me, please?" She wouldn't say yes and she wouldn't say no. Something like, "I'm kind of hungry for some fresh fish. Fresh fish for dinner would be nice. You want fresh fish? I'll get you fresh fish." And he would race to the stream and spear a few fish, bring them to her, and lay them in front of her. But she still would not agree to marry him. He could give her anything that she wanted, anything that she asked for, he would provide. But she would not agree to marry him. One day he asked, "Isn't there anything that I can bring you that would persuade you to marry me?" She got this faraway look in her eye, and she said, "There is one thing, but I don't think you could ever bring it. The tail of a Lenani beast. I hear that they're so beautiful, so smooth, and so fun to have. How famous would I be if I had such a tail?" The young man gulped and said, "The Lenani beasts live deep in the forest. And the Lenani beasts crunch human bones for dinner." "I know," she said. "But if a man brought me such a tail, he would have to be very brave, and I would have to marry him." The young man was inspired. So he decided to go and get a tail of a Lenani beast. He went home and he sharpened his knife and he set out to the forest. Now, the Lenani beasts lived in a grove deep in the forest, and they slept all day long. At dusk, they would wake up and go looking for bones to crush for supper, preferably human bones. Now, they had learned through the time that humans coveted their tails. So they developed a strange sleeping habit. While they were sleeping, they would open and close their eyes. And they were asleep all the time. And they would mutter under their breaths. Well, when their eyes were open, they would say, "I'm awake." When their eyes were closed, they would say, "I'm asleep." "I'm awake." "I'm asleep." But they were asleep all the time. The young man approached the grove, and the Lenani beasts were sleeping all over each other on mounds and the ground, and they appeared to be asleep. But when he got close, he saw that they were opening and closing their eyes and saying, "I'm asleep, I'm awake, I'm asleep, I'm awake, I'm asleep, I'm awake." He said, "Oh no, they wake up every few seconds. How can I sneak up and cut off a tail?" So he sat down to observe for a while. And he noticed that when they said, "I'm awake," they didn't look around. And when they opened their eyes, they were still breathing heavily as if they were asleep. I think they're asleep all the time, even when they open their eyes. He needed to have that tail. So he took a risk. He got closer and closer, and he stepped over the first Lenani beast. "I'm asleep, I'm awake, I'm asleep, I'm awake." He didn't move at all. They're all asleep. They are asleep. And he went around, tiptoed, to look for the perfect, the most beautiful tail to bring to his girlfriend. And there he saw it. It was the tail of the chief of the Lenani beast. It was so long and silky. And he took out his knife and with one slash, cut it right off. That knife was so sharp, the beast didn't move at all. Kept on sleeping. "I'm asleep, I'm awake. I'm asleep, ouch, I'm awake. I'm asleep, I'm awake." The young man took the tail and he tiptoed over the sleeping beast and he began to run. "Now she will marry me. Now she will be mine. She will be mine tonight." But it was a long way to get back to the village. and night began to fall. In the meantime, the Lenani beasts began to wake up. Oh, wake up, Lenani beasts! It's time to go find some bones to crush. They yawned and they got up, and the beast that was lying next to the chief touched the ground, and he felt something sticky and wet. It was the blood from the chief's tail. But he began to laugh. The chief has wet his bed! The chief has wet his bed! The chief stood up and he scowled. What? What? What is my tail? This is blood. Someone has cut off my tail. Only a human would do something like this. Whoever that man is, today he becomes my enemy. And the beasts began to lurk around and search the grove, and they saw the trail of blood leading to the forest. I will go fetch my tail and bring back dinner, said the chief. And he tied some straw grass into a magic knot, and he waved it, and he began to chant, "You who became my enemy today, you who became my enemy today, no matter where you are, no matter where you hide, I will find you. Speak to me." And the magic knot drove out the young man's voice as he was running. He couldn't help it. It just came out. I, he heard himself saying, "I who cut off your tail today, I who cut off your tail today. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. The woman made me do it." And he ran and he ran. The chief stomped down the path, and he got closer and closer, and every now and then he would stop and wave the magic knot, and he would say, "You who became my enemy today, you who became my enemy today, no matter where you go, no matter where you hide, I will find you. Speak to me." And the young man's voice came out, I who became your enemy today, I who became your enemy today, I cut off your tail. Oh, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't mean to do it. The woman made me do it. And he ran and he ran, and he reached his village. And he ran right to the girl's house, and he said, here's the Lenani tail. And she said, "Oh, a Lenani tail. Wonderful. Now, will you marry me?" "Yes, how brave you must be. I will marry you." "Well, hide me. The Lenani is after me." And she put some mats over him, and he could not be seen. The Lenani beast approached the village, and he saw the houses. He must be in one of these houses. He waved his magic knot. "You who became my enemy today, you who became my enemy today, no matter where you go, no matter where you hide, I will find you. Speak to me." And from under the mats, the young man's voice came out. "I who became your enemy today, I who became your enemy today, I cut off your tail, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't mean to do it. The woman made me do it." And the chief followed the voice to the house, and he burst into the house, and there was the girl sitting holding his tail. The young man could not be seen, so he waved his knot. "You who became my enemy today, you who became my enemy today, no matter where you go, no matter where you hide, I will find you. Speak to me." And from under the mats, the young man's voice came out. He covered his mouth with both hands, but he couldn't help it. "I became your enemy today. I became your enemy today. I cut off your tail." And he leaped from under the mats, and he begged the Lenani leaf. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't want to do it. The woman made me do it." And the chief looked at the girl holding his tail. He said, The The woman made you do it. And he grabbed his tail from the girl and says, but the man is responsible for his own actions. And he took the young man and he threw them across his back, and he walked out of the house, out of the village, and into the forest, and that young man was never seen again. Now in that village, they tell the young girls, if you love a young man, don't ask him to do impossible things. Don't do that. And to the young man they say, if you love a young girl, no matter what she says, no matter what she asks, remember, the man is responsible for his own actions. My story. So that's my
That's a
folktale from
story
Kenya.
for our times, for grown-ups, very much so. Yes, yes.
I was thinking it teaches part of the mores of the culture.
Right.
That's what the stories were about. They weren't to amuse the children. It was to educate the children and for the adults to remember when they came to a turning point. Oh, a man is responsible for his own actions. Maybe I don't want to do that.
Right, yeah.
Or blame the woman.
It's easy to blame somebody else, right?
Yes.
It made me think of the old, she made me eat the apple.
You go way back.
Stories go way
That's another
back.
story. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So yeah, and
We've been working on that one for too long a time.
and this is a story that for children, I can see where children audience participation, because they can repeat. I'm asleep. I'm awake.
Oh yeah, that would
Yeah.
be and I've learned that's a gesture that will stop them. You probably know that.
When you're done.
Yes, that's enough. Or anyways, so where did you find it?
Actually, I got it in a storytelling book. It was, I think it was introduced by Margaret McDonald.
Margaret Reed McDonald.
Yes,
yeah, she has
right.
many
books.
collections.
And she says how I think her son-in-law and her daughter tell it together in tandem, and
nice.
so it's one. Those stories that kind of speaks to me.
Yes,
Yeah, so.
yes. Not all stories do, but when they do, I like to carry some around with me.
For me, the conclusion was so important. I kept thinking, wow, this is a deep and powerful story, and it is about men and women, and that magic thing that makes your voice come out, and you can't stop telling the truth.
Yeah.
That was powerful. But then to hear the beast say to the woman and the man is responsible.
Yeah.
Well, this time has gone so fast that it's time to say goodbye. Thank you, Eliud, for being our guest. Thank you, Marnie, for coming as the
Oh, my
co-host.
delight.
And thank you, listeners, for watching the show. We hope you come back next month and see what's up in April. Story by Story, celebrating the human spirit. Bye for now.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again,